Chris Doyle is an expert on Middle Eastern politics and joins us live now from here in London. Chris, thank you very much for your time, first of all. Now, the US, they're reaffirming its support for Israel. Israel would prefer to retaliate in conjunction with the US, but Washington has made it very clear that it won't participate in any retaliation. Where does this leave Israel?
It's very unclear. There's so many scenarios right now as to what could happen. You can go from one possibility that this is Netanyahu playing the Americans somewhat, he's trying to get something out of them, to that actually all the way to Israel under Netanyahu wanting to have a full-scale war on Iran to deal with its nuclear infrastructure and the like, and to drag the United States into it. It's all very well the United States saying they want a diplomatic solution, but they're committed to Israel's defense. So what happens if Israel does launch a major offensive and Iran then, of course, responds in some way directly or through some of its allies in the region? Of course, then that would suck in the United States. So it's a very confused, a very dangerous situation. And I don't think at the moment we are seeing enough to actually dial down the rhetoric, to de-escalate and get into a situation where we avoid what would be an extremely costly and very dangerous war in the Middle East.
When you say extremely costly and dangerous war in the Middle East, I mean, that is the major concern worldwide. I think it's fair to say that this will explode into a full-scale regional war. How likely is that? And just how significant will that be?
I think the danger is that nothing is off the table, that we cannot be sure that these worst-case scenarios are excluded. And we see far too many people in both the leadership of Israel and Iran all too keen and content to risk that sort of war. And I can be absolutely certain that at the end of any conflict between Israel and Iran, there will not be some great winner in all of this. It will be extremely destructive, a huge loss of human life. The global economy will be hit. It'll suck in other actors as well. And it's really the last thing that the region needs. It is also, of course, going to impact the situation for Palestinians, because whilst this is all going on, the situation in Gaza is still as awful as it has been over the last 6 months, getting worse every single day. And we saw over the weekend also a major explosion of Israeli settler activity throughout the West Bank, targeting over 20 Palestinian communities. So everything is ripe, unfortunately, for these disastrous eventualities. And hopefully, wise heads will prevail and pull all these sides back from the brink. At the moment, though, it looks to the contrary, that the Israeli leadership has said it's going to respond. Unless that response is very limited, I fear that this could be the next step to that full-scale confrontation.
It does indeed, Chris, sound pretty likely. We're hearing that Israeli Air Force has now completed preparations for a potential attack on Iran. If Israel does retaliate in defiance of the US saying don't, and other international pressure, how risky would that be right now, having already lost so much support, given the situation in Gaza?
I think Israeli leadership was probably very content to see the level of support that it got in defending its airspace from not just its major ally, the United States, but other allies and even regional actors like Jordan. And I think that probably has given it the confidence to believe that in the event it carries out a strike on Iran, that that sort of level of support will be maintained to counter any Iranian response. You have also to remember that there is a lot of unhappiness within the region about Iran's actions over the years, not just in the recent past, that is including amongst major Gulf states who have opposed what Iran has been doing in many countries like Syria, Yemen. And you also have a lot of European disquiet because Iran has been providing drones to Russia, has been giving Russia support in the war on Ukraine. So Iran also needs to be wary of this, that whilst it may have thought in the first 6 months of all that's happened in Gaza that it might have been, in its own view, benefiting from all of this, this could change around very sharply. And for all Israel's weaknesses that have been exposed, it still remains, in regional terms, a major military power that should not be underestimated. So all of this adds up to this very dangerous cocktail of poor leadership, the lack of any real international movement to resolve all of this, any sense that these leaders actually have any real desire to go the full distance in terms of seeking every available opportunity to get some sort of negotiations going forward to stop all of this. We need a ceasefire now. It's not just in Gaza.
Chris, thank you very much for talking to us. Chris Doyle, Middle Eastern politics expert there, speaking to us live from here in London.